This is the Savvy Investor radio show and podcast. For help with your retirement, schedule a 15-minute phone conversation with the team at ProStatus Financial Advisors today. Just call 866-597-1040 and at thesavvyinvestorradio.com.
Over the next few minutes, we'll discuss what federal employees on the verge of retirement need to be aware of. Welcome in, Savvy Investors. Mike Canet is here. He is a financial planner and estate planning attorney with a master's in tax and founder of ProStatus Financial, and he's here to help you grow, keep, and distribute your wealth in the most tax-efficient manner possible. Mike, let's get right into it. Let's talk about federal employees, federal benefits, and a big problem. Why is retiring from the federal government so tricky?
Well, they have so many moving parts. I mean, it's kind of a blessing and a curse to be working for the federal government in general. I mean, today even more so. But if you think about these retirement issues, when do you retire? Because the day of the month of the year that you retire impacts your retirement.
Critical.
It's that critical. They're literally the 3 best days to retire every single year, right? And then there's the next 3 best days, and so on and so forth. And it's how much time am I going to carry over? How much time am I going to be able to apply to my to my pension? My terms of years. What type of health care benefits do I want to actually elect? Have I already elected my long-term care benefits? Do I want them? What do I do with all this? I mean, it is a ton of federal benefits out there for federal employees, and you have to work your way through this maze. And unfortunately, when I first started this 30 years ago, OPM and the federal government actually had a true HR department where they had people there that would actually explain to the employees all their benefits and how they worked and help calculate this.
Not today.
Not today. It's all gone. It's all gone. Now you got to figure it out for yourself. And anybody who's ever worked with OPM, I mean, I swear to God, they're still calculating your pension benefits on an abacus. I mean, I swear to God. I mean, how is it that they can't figure out how much money you're going to get when you retire? Let's say you retire January 1st. Your pension check in February and March and April are going to be different than they are in May, June, and July. That's how antiquated they are still. So, yeah, it's crazy when they have to go through that. And I think that adds to the uncertainty, right? I mean,
sure.
You want something definitive when you're going into retirement, when you're making that decision. And if you don't know, how can you make the decision that, yes, I can, right? So that's exactly what's going on.
Well, speaking of uncertainty, and I guess adding a little insult to injury here and making it trickier, now they're bracing for the proposed government overhaul from the Trump administration's DOGE, Department of Government Efficiencies. How can that affect soon-to-be retirees? 'Cause that's a whole new thing to worry about.
And I know there's a lot of negative connotations to this whole thing, and there's a lot of concern about it. And I think we should kind of flip it on its head, right? I mean, I think everybody agrees that there are government inefficiencies. I think everybody agrees there are things we can do to reduce our governmental spending. I mean, we don't always agree on what that thing is, but I liken it to in your own retirement plan. I mean, you want to create efficiencies in your own retirement plan. You want to cut out the unnecessary spending in your own retirement plan. You want to fine-tune it. You want to make sure that you're in the best spot possible to be as successful as possible. And in theory, that's exactly what this DOGE is doing, right? I mean, and so on one hand, I understand the apprehension and fear we have because how's it going to impact me personally? Am I going to be the person that's let go for whatever reason because they don't think my job is necessary anymore? I get that fear, but I do want to flip it on its head and say, let's look at this as a positive thing. And how do we take that same concept and approach that they're taking with the government? How do we do that with our own personal retirement? Because that would make an incredible difference in the success of your retirement, of what you've envisioned and how you're going to get there.
We're talking about federal employees here, and you mentioned everyone should be looking at efficiencies when it comes to their retirement planning. But if, like you said, DOGE comes in and says there's a lot of inefficiencies here, or this person's been working here for a long time, we're going to give them an escape hatch, retirement package, early retirement. That could be a good thing.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. Because, I mean, for a lot of people, once you get to about 55 to 60 years old, somewhere in that age bracket, right? And most federal retirees can retire it's kind of a rule of thumb, 20 plus, you got to get to usually somewhere between 58 and 62 to get your full retirement without any reduced benefits. But if you've thought about getting out early, if you've looked at yourself and said, you know what, I'm ready, I just need to get that time in to get those, my 40 years basically in, this is an opportunity that you don't get penalized for leaving early. So you do need to explore it, and you do need to have that conversation. And really, in order to be prepared, you need to be prepared, right? So in order to be able to explore the option, pick up the phone and give us a call at 866-597-1040, 866-597-1040. Sit down with Ryan, myself, and our team, and we'll show you how to create those income streams. We're going to talk to you about taxes and inflation and fees. But for federal employees specifically, imagine if you have a plan in place that you know exactly what your income's going to be and what you're going to need, right? And then when they do offer you that early out, right? Because typically they come across as an offer first and then they force second, right? Sure. So imagine being in that first wave of an offer and knowing that, yes, that offer works for me. Well, you don't know that offer works if you haven't picked up the phone and given us a call at 866-597-1040, 866-597-1040. If you don't have that plan in place, you can't decide whether that offer out is going to work. And worst case scenario is if you're pushed out, right? If you're pushed out and downsized, if you're not prepared for it because you haven't done your own research, you haven't done your own DOGE analysis, right? You're in a world of trouble. It starts by picking up the phone and give us a call, 866-597-1040.
And you guys can do that with the federal benefits review that you're talking about.
Oh, right. So we do all the analysis. We could tell you the best 3 days. We could tell you how much time you're carrying over, what's going to count towards your sick leave and what's going to count for vacation time, and how much you're going to be able to increase your years, right, your years of service, and how much you're going to get paid for on vacation time. We can add all that up for you and tell you exactly what that final paycheck's going to be. We could tell you the best day for you to retire. Absolutely.
We're going to talk about TSPs coming up here too, but you guys have done something a little extra for you listening today. 866-597-1040. You can call that. We've had teammates standing by for the federal benefits review. But on your website,
yes,
on your website, thesavvyinvestorradio.com, button front page at the top, because that's how important this is.
Yes, absolutely. It's always been that important. And I mean, fortunately for us, our main offices have always been in the Delmarva area. So, and that is a huge area, concentration of federal employees and contractors. I mean, because, this impacts directly right this second in our minds. It impacts the federal employees, but the trickle effect is all the contractors too, right? Because it's not just we're going to fire and downsize a bunch of employees. They're going to get rid of lots of these contracts for things they don't think are necessary, right? And again, we can agree to disagree what is and isn't necessary, but at the end of the day, the ripple effect could be fairly wide.
Right.
And so if you are a federal contractor or you are a federal employee, that button works the same way for both of you, right? I mean, you can go there, click that button, and I mean, we have information on TSP, on healthcare elections, on FEGLI. We have everything there, so you can get some information, but you can also schedule a time to sit down and talk with Ryan and myself and our team. And I'm doing experts in air quotes here for us because that's always a slippery slope. But as knowledgeable as you can be about federal benefits, that's what we do.
Again, thesavvyinvestorradio.com, front page right there at the top, thesavvyinvestorradio.com. Click on the federal benefits review for a 15-minute phone conversation. You can go on their calendar and pick a time that's going to work best for you. Talk about control. You have a lot of stories. I want to get to TSPs here in a minute, but you have a lot of stories. You've said in the past that because you guys work with a lot of federal employees, you help a lot of federal employees here in the area. Sometimes they're working for free.
Oh, absolutely. Maybe not free, but below minimum wage. Below minimum wage.
Okay.
And it's always amazing, especially the CSRS people, the old retirement system, right?
That's not around anymore.
Well, you can't get it anymore, but it's still there for some of them. And there's so many federal employees that are now TSP millionaires, right? And that's always kind of been in people's minds, the three buckets. You get your pension, you have Social Security for non-CSRS people, and then you have your TSP. And $1 million in your TSP has kind of always been the magical dream for a lot of people, so that I have enough money to live on. But the CSRS system, basically, they're getting 40 to 42, maybe a little bit more of their actual salaries. So when you take into account the pension that you're getting, and if you're working, right, let's just say you're making $100,000 a year for simplicity's sake, and you're going to get $82,000 or $84,000 a year from your pension, you're working a full-time job for $16,000 a year. And I will pay you to weed my garden more than, well, whatever that works out to be, $7 an hour or whatever it works out to be. I'll pay you more than that to come to my house and weed.
So what's that look like? I mean, you tell someone, hey, you're basically working, air quotes, for free.
Right.
Do they say, I'm done? Or do they want more information? They want to see it in black and white?
Honestly, I think the people that are still there in that environment, it's because they are so passionate about what they do. I think that's the bulk of them. But to be honest, I think there's a small percentage of them that, for all of us, or for many of us, our identity is what we do.
Yeah.
And I don't think they've ever figured out that work-life balance, so they don't know what that next phase is going to be. And to some extent, maybe even some of them are like myself, where my wife is terrified that I'm going to come home and not go back.
I don't blame her. I don't blame her.
I get it.
All right, 866-597-1040. This is for federal employees to get a complimentary federal benefits review with Mike Canet, with Ryan Herbert, with the team at ProStatus, 866-597-1040, and, of course, online at thesavvyinvestorradio.com. Let's talk.
Michael, I do want to throw out something here. So, and I know it's kind of a digression from where we were going with this conversation, but I do want to point out that the windfall elimination provision, especially for those CSRs people and other, there's some state and local with like firefighters and police departments where while they were working their main job for the governments, they did not contribute to Social Security. So under the Reagan administration, they eliminated, there's this thing called the windfall elimination provision. And what it said is that you're getting such an incredible pension, you don't get to collect Social Security the same way everybody else collected Social Security. So like my younger brother, Baltimore County police officer, and he worked for about 8 years in the private sector, and then part-time 2 years in the private sector, but he's been a cop for about 30 years, right? But he has his 40 quarters in his Social Security. But when he gets ready to retire, it used to be that if he was entitled to, let's say, $1,000 a month from Social Security, they would take away $300 or $400 of it, so he'd only get $500 or $600 or $700.
Really?
Right?
Okay.
So that was called the windfall elimination provision. And there's a calculation involved, but you're basically losing 30, 40%, maybe a little bit more sometimes. And Biden, right before he left, signed a bill saying no more. That's out the window. And they're making it retroactive to the beginning of 2024. So all these federal employees, like the CSRS people who worked a part-time job for 10 or 15 years, who have their 40 quarters in, people who may be able to claim on their spouse, right, spousal benefits, because their spouse has a huge pension and they have a huge Social Security, and they have a smaller one because they work for the federal government, all of a sudden that elimination is gone. And so I'm not sure, because we haven't heard how Social Security is going to handle this, because this is a Social Security thing, but you should be looking forward in the very, very near future to a nice little Social Security bonus check coming your way, because the windfall elimination was eliminated effective January 1st of 2024.
How many people know this, and why is it so important for federal employees to be working with knowledgeable professionals like Mike Canet, Ryan Herbert, and your team at ProStatus?
Well, the reality is when you pick up the phone and give us a call at 866-597-1040, 866-597-1040, and you sit down with Ryan and myself and our team, we don't have to go Google and figure out every little nuance of your retirement. We've been doing this for 30 years.
30 years.
We have taught classes. I have taught at the FBI. I have taught down at NSA. I've taught at NASA. I have taught at Aberdeen Proving Grounds. I've taught at the Naval Yards. I have taught at Fort Meade. I have taught all over the place federal benefits. So we're very, very well versed. And I think what ends up happening for a lot of people, especially federal employees, they have a tendency to be a little bit more grounded. They are a little bit more maybe conservative in nature. They're a little bit more procedural driven. They like kind of steps involved because they've had structure in their employment their whole lives. And that's what we bring to the table. We actually have structure involved, right? We're very, very process driven. We look at your retirement plan. We look at your income needs. We look at your tax implications. We look at your estate planning. We look at how much risk you're taking. We look at your legacy. We look at your long-term care.
It's a lot.
Right. There's a lot of pieces going on. And this way, instead of having to Google it, instead of going to some guy who says, yeah, I can roll over your 401k or your TSP in this situation, I can roll over your TSP, you're working with somebody who truly understands that the 3 best days do matter. It does matter. It does matter how many hours you're going to carry over, because you can only carry over so many, right? And all that counts. And if you don't know those things and you don't know how to do all the calculations, you could leave a lot on the table by not working with the right team. Pick up the phone, give us a call, 866-597-1040, 866-597-1040.
And you can go online. You'll love this. You can go online at thesavvyinvestorradio.com. Again, that's thesavvyinvestorradio.com. Front page right there at the top, because that's how important this is. Click on the Federal Benefits Review button, and that'll get you a 15-minute phone conversation on your schedule, because you can look at Mike, you can look at his team's schedule to see what's going to be open and what's going to work best for you. Again, 866-597-1040 and at thesavvyinvestorradio.com. I'm glad to hear that you guys do all the calculations, because we don't want to do that. We want somebody else to handle that, and knowledgeable professionals like yourselves at ProStatus, and here, of course, at the Savvy Investor. All right, so let's talk federal benefits and the TSP. What do we need to be aware of today when it comes to the TSP?
Well, I mean, the TSP is basically 1/3 of your retirement for most federal employees, right? And I think what happens is people with the federal government have a tendency to kind of set it and forget it. Mm-hmm. And they have a tendency to be over-conservative. And it's not that over-conservative is a bad thing. Our philosophy is always you take the risk you need to take in order to accomplish your goals. And if you can do that having the G fund, well, then do it having the G fund. But it used to be the G fund you actually made money in. Well, now the G fund is barely a money market account. So it's understanding how those 5 funds actually work, because there's really only five choices funds they have.
Okay.
And it's understanding how those 5 funds work. And it's also understanding that while it feels comfortable when you're working having your money in the TSP, the problem that we have with the TSP, it's dirt cheap. I mean, you can't get a better price point than the TSP. And so when you make that decision to move it, obviously you're going to be either moving it and taking care of it yourself, mm-hmm. or moving it and hiring somebody to take care of it for you. Now, here's the thing. If you leave it at the TSP, my problem with it is pick up the phone and call OPM and ask them a question.
Crickets.
Absolutely impossible. Absolutely impossible. Try to make a change. Almost impossible. Get advice. Almost impossible. So we always recommend that when you leave your employer, you take your money with you. Now, I say always. Most of the time, it makes better sense to take it with you because of the options you have. You can choose to hire somebody or choose to do it yourself. But if you're going to manage your TSP on your own when you leave, take it to Vanguard and buy all their index funds. They're basically the same thing, comparable price point, comparable, right? And at least that way you can pick up the phone and call Vanguard. And you know what? At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, if you have a question, you can call somebody. Try calling OPM past 2 o'clock. Try to make a decision past 2 o'clock with OPM. You can't.
So again, not I guess this is a blanket statement, and everyone's situation is different. But if I'm retiring, should I take my TSP with me, much like a general
401k? Absolutely. 401k. So almost always we encourage you, when you leave your employer, federal government or not, take your 401k with you. Again, for better or for worse, the TSP has 5 funds. And I know people may be listening and saying, oh, no, they have all these funds. They have lifestyle funds. What I would encourage you to do, if you're a lifestyle fund person, go look at the 2010 lifestyle fund. You can still go back and look at it. And in 2010, if my memory is correct, and I'm getting older, so sometimes it's a little gray, but I think the 2010 fund, and the lifestyle fund's designed to become more conservative the closer you get to that target date, right?
So it's like a target date fund.
It is a target date fund. And so the 2010 fund lost somewhere around 25 to 30% in 2008. How is it 2 years before you're going to retire, you lose almost a third of your retirement money? So I've never been an advocate of a target date or lifestyle fund. I just don't. I think they're bad for most people. I know they seem like they should work. Our experience has been they don't deliver the way they're supposed to deliver. So TSP has 5 funds. I don't care what anybody else says. It's 5. Okay. And so you can get those 5 funds. And fortunately or unfortunately, there's literally thousands of funds, right? You can buy annuities, you can buy stocks, you can buy bonds, you can buy mutual funds, you can buy ETFs, you can buy gold, you can buy Bitcoin if that's what you want to do, right? I mean, the opportunities are boundless when you drop it into an IRA compared to the TSP. That's why we encourage it. You can control the fees just the same, right? So you can still have dirt cheap. You can decide you want service and assistance, or you can decide to do it yourself. The IRA gives you options that the TSP does not provide for you.
So much like your 401k.
Exactly like the 401k.
And if you're listening now, you can go to the website, thesavvyinvestorradio.com, the Federal Benefits Review, because we're talking about federal employees and your benefits here on the Savvy Investor Radio. Special segment here with Mike Canet. Again, the SavvyInvestorRadio.com. Click on the front page right there at the top for a 15-minute phone conversation. And, of course, you can always call. We have teammates standing by right now, 866-597-1040, 866-597-1040. I want to talk about the service that you get at ProStatus, not only for federal employees, but for retirees in general. But before that, let's talk pensions for a couple of minutes here. Government pensions, they're a little different than normal pensions and the old pension system, correct?
Right. So the federal government has three, but most people fall into one or two categories for their pensions. You're either under the old system, which was basically before 84, if you were employed before 84, and that's the CSRS, or you're in FERS. There's a couple years that they had what was called an offset, and the offset is really, really beautiful, but the offset is even more confusing. So we're going to table that because that's hour-long conversation. But the CSRS basically says you get about 2% for every year you worked. And there's a formula, but we're just going to use 2%. And the FERS says you basically get about 1%, but if you put in more than 20, you get 1.1. So you get about 20%-ish for under the FERS system. So you work 40 years, you get about 40% of your pay. You work 20 years, you get about 20% of your pay. But the FERS, you get Social Security. So the FERS people contribute a little bit to their pension and contribute the full freight to their Social Security.
Okay.
The CSRS people contributed full freight to their pension and zero to Social Security, which is why technically if all you ever had was CSRS, you don't have Social Security. So if you did your 40 quarters outside of that, we do that. Like a good friend of mine, Art, he had a woman that came to him, her husband and her were clients, and she was 4 years short of her qualifying for Social Security. So he hired her so she could get her 40 quarters in, right?
Okay.
So you have to have 40 quarters or 10 years worth of paying into Social Security. It's you got to make about $2,000 a quarter-ish, and that will get you your credit. But so the CSR system, 80%-ish is what you're going to get. FERS, 20%-ish. 2% per year, 1% per year.
It's very, very easy hearing you that this can get into the weeds very quickly.
Well, and remember, it's 1% unless you do enough time, then it's 1.1.
That's why we leave those calculations to you guys.
and then your medical leave counts for something, and your vacation time counts for something, and so your medical leave can be added in so that you might have a little bit more time served, so to speak. So all those things count.
All right, we're going to give you the number and the website here in just a minute. So I'm a federal employee. I come to you guys. We start creating a plan. What is that like after I've retired, after we put the plan together? The plan can be done. We know that. We've established that here. But what's the service like, Mike, once I'm a federal employee and I've retired?
Well, so in our offices, when you come in and we're putting together the plan, we're going to create the income plan, right? Everybody wants to make sure they're never going to run out of income. So we're going to show you how to create those income streams, right? And you can choose, do you want to transfer the risk of running out of money to an insurance company? Because your pension is basically a guarantee from the government. So if you want to, and Social Security, a guarantee from the government, right? So for whatever your gap is, whatever that shortage is in your income stream, you can choose to absorb the risk yourself, or you can choose to pass it on to an insurance company and have it guaranteed by whatever insurance company is guaranteeing it for you, right? So we're going to show you your options because there are choices on how to create the income stream. Then we're going to talk to you about the fees, because the fees do matter over time, right? In your mind's eye, well, it's only 1%, but 1% adds up over time, and we want to make sure you understand that. Then for us, the biggest thing for us is the tax aspect, right? People don't understand, they're worried about losing money in the stock market, but it never occurs to them that for most of them, they have volunteered to lose 20 to 30% or more of their income every single year to taxes.
That always blows my mind.
Yeah, and they don't want to lose money in the stock market, but they're more than happy to lose 20 to 30% to taxes. Well, we teach you that you should equate those two things as both evils, right? We don't want to lose money in the stock market. I get that part. And we only have a limited amount of control. If we're going to be in the stock market, we only have a limited control. Can we, avoid the losses?
Sure.
How do we minimize them, and how do we defend ourselves against it? But you know what we have 100% control over? The taxes. You have 100% control over that tax bill. So we talk a lot about taxes. Then, there's legacy issues, and there's long-term care issues and health care issues. Today there's all sorts of things that need to be addressed. So We address all those things for our clients. And so when it takes better part of 6 months to a year to get from start to finish because it's a lot of information. But at the end of the day, you're going to get a well-drafted plan that says, here's exactly all the things that we said we're going to do, and here's exactly how these things are going to progress. Here's exactly where your money's going to come from. And when you pick up the phone and give us a call, 866-597-1040, 866-597-1040. Not only do you get that, but then after that, on an ongoing basis, 2 and 3 times a year, we're getting together and we're doing your taxes for you, and we're making sure the taxes are in the right place, and we're making sure you're paying the least amount of taxes legally possible.
That's the good stuff.
Right. And then we're making sure that your income stream is still safe and secure if that's the direction you chose. And we're making sure you're still taking the least amount of risk necessary to accomplish your goals. And we're making sure that all the changes, and you know, I'm an attorney, right? And I know that attorneys basically run the government. And attorneys love to make sure that they change the rules frequently enough to keep us employed, right? I mean, being cynical about that, but that's exactly what these guys do. They always tweak the rules just a little bit, enough that you have to go back and hire an attorney to fix the problem. Well,
job security.
Right, job security. So that's what we bring to the table. We're constantly monitoring those changes to make sure that your income plan and your estate plan and your tax plan adjusts for those changes. The windfall elimination provision is a prime example of that. Those are the things that we constantly have to monitor. And when you're working with us, it starts by picking up the phone and giving us a call at 866-597-1040, 866-597-1040. Let Ryan, myself, and our team sit down. We will create those income streams for you. We will show you how much risk you're taking, the fees you're paying. We're going to talk about estate planning and long-term care and taxes. You don't want to lose money in the stock market? Stop giving it to Uncle Sam. Pick up the phone, 866-597-1040.
Or you can go online to thesavvyinvestorradio.com. Again, that's thesavvyinvestorradio.com. They've made it easy for you. Go to the front page there, right at the top. Click on the Federal Benefits Review button right there at the front page at the top and schedule a 15-minute phone conversation with Mike, with Ryan, with Catherine, with Lawrence, with Samantha, and the team at ProStatus Financial to help you to and through retirement. Federal employees, thank you so much. We know it's tough retiring from the federal government. And we thank you for your service. That's why you need someone who is knowledgeable, knows what you're going through, and has the skill set to get you through that. Mike Canet, thank you as always. Appreciate your time, especially here. Lots going on with the federal employees. We appreciate your time and really just focusing that and the federal employees to help them out.
And remember, this whole DOGE thing, it should not be a fear factor. It should be really an opportunity for you to sit back and look how to create the efficiencies in your own retirement. Thanks for joining us. This is Mike Canet. Thanks for listening to The Savvy Investor Radio. We'll see you, The Savvy Investor, next time.
Advisory services offered through ProStatus Financial Advisors Group, a registered investment advisor. Insurance licensed in Maryland. ProStatus Financial Advisors Group, LLC is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if ProStatus Financial Advisors Group is licensed in your state, please call 410-863-1040. ProStatus Group, LLC is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through representatives of ProStatus Financial Advisors Group.